Omawale dancers and drummers, we want to welcome you. We want to first acknowledge the Detroit Council of Elders and ask them to first have a seat. Thank you. And the family, if you would please be seated. And then the rest of the attendees, please have your seats. Kwame Kenyatta, on many occasions, told me, brother, don't let them give me no Negro funeral. And thanks to the planning of Kofi and his family, this will not be a Negro homegoing ceremony. So this is a celebration of the life of our brother and comrade, Kwame Kenyatta. We thank you all for coming. I'm honored that the family has asked me to serve as the MC. Kwame was my close brother and comrade. And we're going to ask the Omawale drummers and dancers to come back out. And we have a Legba ceremony that they're going to be performing. Please put your hands together for Omawale drummers and dancers.
Jumbo, everyone. Jumbo, everyone. It is indeed an honor and pleasure to be here to serve you in the form of African drumming and African dance. I would like to extend to the family my thoughts, my prayers, my condolences in the loss of your beloved. He meant so much to many of us here. And excuse me as I'm winded. Drumming will take some air out of you, okay? I'm just being honest with you. Every time I'm on this stage, I'm reminded of the wonderful works of my father, and respectfully, who we're here to honor, Baba Kwame. I can't even help not think about, I don't even know where to start, actually. How about that? Because his work and his legacy is infinite. The mere fact that you are here to celebrate his life says so much. So with that being said, I will be brief. I will not be long-winded, but I will allow the dance and I will allow the drum to express our highest sympathy and to express how we feel about our beloved ancestor now. May he rest in perfect peace with their Orisha, with their ancestors, and those that we love and cherish who went on. We say Ashe. Ashe. Ashe, Asheo.
Omawale Cultural Society. Put your hands together for the Omawale Cultural Society. Omawale Cultural Society. And although the program says that dance is Legba, that was actually a dance from the Mali Empire called Lamban. It's a royal court dance, and it's often performed at ceremonies such as this. We want to call up from the Detroit Council of Elders, Elder Balagoon, to pour libations. And one of the things that we know as African people is that our existence is not just here on the physical plane. In fact, sometimes we say there's a trilogy of African life. There's the so-called past, the so-called present, and the so-called future, but it's really all fused together. And so our ancestors are always accessible to us. And so part of why we pour libations is to invite the ancestors to be here with us and to sanction this event. So to do that, we want to call forward a member of the Detroit Council of Elders, Brother Balagoon Mike Anderson. Kwame Kenyatta Insa Ashe. As Elder Balagoon just shared with us, Detroit is a very mighty place. It's a mighty place. And the fact that Kwame lived most of his life here is not by coincidence. And so now he joins the ranks of those mighty ancestors upon whose shoulders we stand, and will continue to call Kwame Kenyatta's name when we pour libations. We want to call his cousin forward, Bennett Tyus, to read the obituary and to give acknowledgments.
Good morning. On behalf of Kwame's family, we want to let you all know that we're deeply appreciative for your prayers, your thoughts, your words of comfort, cards, phone calls, text messages, emails, and any other form of communication. It is at this time that we really need your thoughts and your prayers, and for this, again, we are appreciative. We ask that you continue to keep us in your prayers, especially Kofi, Yana, and the siblings of Kwame. May I have your attention as I read the obituary? In loving memory of Kwame Kenyatta. Kwame Olugabala Yao Kenyatta, birth name Norman Tyus, was born on March 15, 1956 in Bessemer, Alabama. Kwame credited Bessemer, a small community rich in family ties and neighborly traditions, for providing him with a strong foundation. Bessemer was also the place where he was first confronted with the harsh realities of racism and discrimination, when as a young child he endured taunting, rock tossing, and fistfights as one of the original students in Alabama to attend a formerly white-owned elementary school. At the age of 12, he moved with his cousin and adopted mother, Juliet Madia Jenkins, and her children, Pete and Priscilla, to Detroit, Michigan. The move occurred in the aftermath of the 1967 Detroit Rebellion, as the Black Power and Civil Rights movements were at the fore of the national consciousness. It was within this context that his burgeoning political formation began. It was here in the great city of Detroit that his life of activism took form. Kwame was educated in the Detroit public school system. While a student at Cooley High School, he formed the Detroit Black Student Association to advocate for the inclusion of Black studies in the curriculum. He was later expelled after leading a protest that culminated with a student takeover of the principal's office. It was also during this period that he reclaimed his African name. His first name and surname were chosen in honor of two revolutionary African political titans, Kwame Nkrumah, the first Prime Minister and President of Ghana, and Jomo Kenyatta, the first Prime Minister and President of Kenya, both revered leaders in the liberation struggles that freed their respective homelands from British colonial rule. He went on to study at Eastern Michigan University and Wayne County Community College. Beyond his formal studies, Kwame was an independent scholar, an avid reader and researcher who amassed a vast collection of books, many of which focus on the history, culture, and political movements of the African diaspora. A neighborhood friend, Brother Isaiah, recruited Kwame to join the shrines of the Black Madonna Pan African Orthodox Christian Church, where he continued to learn about organized Black political struggle. Following his brief membership in the shrine, he continued his involvement in organizations committed to Black self-determination and empowerment. He served as the head of the Youth League of the Pan-African Congress USA and co-founder of All African Liberation Committee, a youth-led organization that planned the African Liberation Day March. During this time, he was mentored by a host of political and cultural innovators and leaders. This group of Wayshores included Baba Kwame Atta, Mama Imani Humphrey, Mama Aisha Collier, Mwalima Ed Vaughn, Papa Wells, and Brother Shokwe Lumumba, among others. In later years, he held membership in several organizations, including the Republic of New Africa, the New African People's Organization, the Malcolm X Grassroots Movement, Fahakra International, and the National Black United Front. For 10 years, Kwame directed the Malcolm X Community Center for Self-Determination, a popular community hub which provided services including a food co-op, summer youth activities, senior support, rites of passage training, and a host of other cultural and community programming. As a cultural consultant, he conducted many educational workshops, African naming ceremonies, weddings, libation, rites of passage ceremonies, and keynote speeches. Looking for new ways to express and expand his commitment to Black empowerment, Kwame decided to pursue public office. He was elected to the Detroit School Board in 1992. He soon became known as a visionary and passionate civic leader and rose to become vice president of the board. During his 5-year tenure, he was an outspoken advocate for African-centered education. His leadership was instrumental in the establishment of the Malcolm X Academy, a pioneering all-male, African-centered school dedicated to providing an academically rigorous and culturally relevant world-class education to its students. The Detroit African-centered pedagogical approach, rooted in the work of Dr. K. Lovelace and colleagues, became the platinum standard adopted by many school systems across the country. In 2003, Kwame was elected to the Wayne County Commission, where he chaired the Health Choice Program, which provided healthcare services for small county businesses and their employees, and the Health and Human Services Committee, which included monitoring the programs and budget for the Mental Health Department. He was also a member of the Ways and Means Committee. Kwame was elected to the Detroit City Council in 2005. During this time of severe economic upheaval, political turmoil, and community dismay, he served as chairman of the Neighborhood and Community Services Committee, chairman of Internal Operations, co-chair of the Budget and Finance Committee, and co-chair of Economic Development and Planning Committee. He also convened the Task Force on Environmental Justice. In 2013, Kwame resigned as councilman because he felt that the city council had been rendered powerless under the emergency manager who had been appointed to run the city after then Michigan Governor Rick Snyder declared that Detroit was in financial distress. Later that year, he relocated to Jackson, Mississippi to serve as Deputy Chief Administrative Officer in the administration of his longtime friend and comrade, Shokwe Lumumba, who had been elected mayor of Jackson, Mississippi. Following Mayor Lumumba's untimely death in February 2014, Kwame remained in Jackson, where he co-owned a local diner. He subsequently returned to city government in 2017 when Chokwe Antar Lumumba won the election to take the mayoral seat formerly occupied by his father. Following his retirement from public service, Kwame moved back to his hometown, Bessemer, where he resided at the time of his transition on May 22, 2019. Kwame authored 3 books: Burning Fire, Guide to Implementing African-Centered Education, and For the People. He was also poet at heart. His poems centered the Black family, Black liberation, and Black community life. He enjoyed spending time by the water, listening to music, reading, writing, and sharing his insights on social issues. Kwame was preceded in death by his biological parents, Pinky Tyus and Terry Lovelace Hill, adoptive mother Juliet Jenkins, brothers Pete, Victor, Jesse, and sister Priscilla. He leaves to cherish his memories, his son Kofi, daughter Ayana, granddaughter Amani, 2 sisters, Bernice, whose spouse is Alex Sr., and Leanna, brothers James, Wilbert, and Michael, a beloved cousin, Bonetta, former spouse and mother of Kofi, Maliika Angela Kenyatta, former spouse and mother of Ayana, Monifa Kenyatta, former spouse, Maisha Kenyatta, and a host of nieces, nephews, extended family, friends, colleagues, and comrades in the struggle for Black liberation. Thank you very much for your attention.
Ashe. Kwame Kenyatta. So Detroit, as I mentioned, and as Elder Balagoon mentioned, has been the home of many powerful activists. But that's not just in the past, it continues to have that legacy. And so we are so proud to have some activists who have decided to step into the treacherous waters of the electoral political arena and fight on our behalf. I respect them who do it. I wouldn't do it, but we need folks who are doing that. So we are so honored today to have the president of the Detroit City Council, the Honorable Brenda Jones, and the powerful, powerful, powerful Honorable Reverend Joanne Watson. Please come to the stage.
If I can be granted permission from my elders to speak. I'm going to start off by saying what Kwame started off saying to me, morning. I also was born in Birmingham, Alabama, and also moved to Detroit in 1967, so we shared several things in common. I want to thank Kofi and the family for giving me this opportunity to briefly be here just a few seconds to share just a few thoughts. And before I do that, I want to acknowledge my colleagues, Roy McAllister and Scott Benson, who are here, and also a testimonial resolution for the Honorable Kwame Kenyatta. This resolution will go down in the history of the city of Detroit. This one is a very difficult one for me because I had the opportunity, although many thought Kwame left Detroit, he left Detroit in body, but in spirit and in voice, he was still in Detroit, because I talked to Kwame very often, almost every Sunday. And Kwame always told me something and said something about the city of Detroit. So know that Kwame did not leave this city in spirit. He was still here, and he still fought. Even when he was in Jackson, Mississippi, he told me things that were going on in Jackson and said, see if that'll work in Detroit.
That's all right. That's all right. Giving honor to God and giving honor to our newest ancestor, the Honorable Kwame Kenyatta. He was honorable before he was elected to the Detroit Board of Education or the Wayne County Commission or the Detroit City Council, or before he worked for the Honorable Chokwe Lumumba, Jackson, Mississippi. He was honorable because he loved God and he loved his people. I worked closely with Connie. We worked together on many things. He married my daughter, my oldest daughter. He named my daughter in my living room. He had a full-blooded African stammer for my baby. He was one who took, at the behest of the great Dr. Betty Shabazz, when she was speaking to Malcolm X Academy's 8th grade graduation, who said, don't just be African-centered, take some of these babies to Africa. So we picked that up. And Dr. Clifford Watson, God bless him, who was the then principal of Malcolm X Academy, and Nana Kwame Atta, Kwame Kenyatta, and many of us, we took a plane load of students from Malcolm X Academy to Ghana, West Africa that year to follow through on what Dr. Betty Shabazz said. He didn't talk about it, he walked about it. Many of the families, of course, didn't have the money to go all the way down. We raised the money. We gave our own money. Nobody gave more than Kwame Kenyatta, who planned the pilgrimage, the journey, the hotels we stayed in, the routes we traveled. He gave his entire self to the mission of loving and serving our people. There will never be another like the Honorable Kwame Kenyatta. Never, never, never. He gave his life for the people. He was of the people. He was by the people, never afraid, never sold out, never sold out, never sold out. We loved Kwame Kenyatta, and we honor him. And because we know the body may leave, but the spirit never does. He's still here. So Kwame Kenyatta lives. Kwame Kenyatta lives. Kwame Kenyatta lives. He was a serious African. Both of us were mentored by Nana Kwame Atta, who bossed us more than our parents did. Help me, Holy Ghost. Oh, help me, somebody. The Council of Elders is still following rules he laid out, and he's not even here in physical. The African Liberation Day Committee is still doing what Kwame Atta said. So Kwame Kenyatta and I, we're still following the rules laid out by Nana Kwame Atta and Dr. Mario Bedelli, who we loved and respected. But Kwame Kenyatta gave all of his adult life to this city, to this community, which should honor him forever and ever and ever. Ashe.
Mama Watson, as I stand here, I'm going to stand here and say one thing as Kwame and I always spoke about, and that was something that was in the newspaper, and we three are here today as the Just Say No trio. And I don't know if you all remember that, but we were called on City Council. Councilwoman Brenda Jones, Councilwoman Joanne Watson, and Councilmember Kwame Kenyatta as we fought for the people, as we fought for the city, the Just Say No trio. And I say, I am proud to be one that was part of the Just Say No trio because so many things we said no to. I'm sure you all know why we said no. And Kwame Kenyatta fought like hell for this city that he loved. He stood with integrity. He read his work and he spoke, sometimes in few words, but he spoke the word for his people. Continue, please, to keep the family of Kwame Kenyatta in prayer as we all continue the love and the legacy as we celebrate the life of Kwame Kenyatta.
We would not be in here if it was not for Council President Brenda Jones. You need to know that. She's not going to say that. I'm telling you what I know. I'm telling you what I know. And while the racist dogs is calling us just say no, we just said yes to our community.
Ashe. So we also have some other testimonial resolutions that we're not going to read all of them, but we're going to acknowledge where they came from. We have one from Wayne County Executive Warren Evans. We have one from the Wayne County Commission, and there are several commissioners and former commissioners in the audience today. We want to acknowledge the Honorable Jewel Ware. Are you here? Throw your hands up if you're here. She just left. We want to call her out. The Honorable Martha G. Scott. She just left. Honorable Irma Clark Coleman. And the Honorable Alicia Bell. And Monique Baker McCormick. Thank you. We also want to acknowledge our brother, former Wayne County Commissioner, longtime activist, Benara Bonilla Parker. Also, there's many people in town for the Cobra Conference, and I see the doctors, Jeffrey, sitting there. We want to acknowledge them. Please put your hands up. Powerhouses. Powerhouses. So two former staffers who worked on Kwame's staff when he was on the Detroit City Council are coming forward. Please put your hands together and welcome Brother Ed Moore and Brother Steve Philpott.
Greetings, family, and a special greetings to the Kenyatta family. This morning, we pay tribute to a brother who truly loves his people. We are now asking for all brothers to stand and raise their black fist in the air as we read the oath of black manhood written by Kwame Kenyatta. As men, we know that it is our responsibility to carry ourselves in a manner that is credited to ourselves, our families, and our people. We know that as fathers, we must love, protect, and provide for our children. As husbands, we must be patient and understanding, loving and caring. As men, we pledge to be responsible members of our communities. We pledge to take an uncompromising stance for freedom and self-determination. We understand that as professional men, doctors, lawyers, teachers, we cannot misuse or abuse the people at any time. We know that it is not an attribute of man to obtain success upon the failures of others. As revolutionary men, we know that we must struggle for self-determination in the New World Order. Finally, in taking this oath, we understand the essence of our manhood is responsibility, commitment. Therefore, we pledge to uphold this oath, displaying the qualities that we just read. Long live the spirit of Kwame Kenyatta. Long live the spirit of Kwame Kenyatta. Long live the spirit of Kwame Kenyatta. Bless you. Peace.
To the family, my name is Edward Moore. Councilman Kenyatta. Those who spoke not good when he resigned because he didn't want to go along with that consent agreement to our oppressors. That's why he resigned. So I want to be told, when you hear about him resigning, he will not accept being with City Council, sitting, letting the emergency manager do as the oppressors want him to do. Now, I want to thank Kofi family for allowing me to speak. Myself and Councilman Kenyatta was closer than you thought. You never would know we were. We talked to each other at least once a month. When he went down to Mississippi, he got me to introduce myself to the family of our Jackson, Mississippi mayor. I want to thank you for allowing me with the family to be on the bus and also being in Mississippi when the celebration of the mayor of Mississippi. Now, this is something that I want to share with you all. Councilman Kenyatta called me 3 weeks before he met the ancestors. He said, Mr. Moore, I'm calling you to say goodbye. He said, you've been loyal to my administration in the city of Detroit, and I just want to tell you I appreciate it. He said, but not when I tell you this, do not tell nobody. So I couldn't call Kofi or anybody to tell him what his father said, because that was a commitment that I made with, I almost say Coleman Young, Kwame Kenyatta. So I'm going to leave you all with this. His spirit, his body has gone back to the Creator, but his spirit still is with us. So I'm saying to everyone that's here, and it goes like this: up, up, you mighty race, accomplish what you will.
So we have a couple other acknowledgments we want to make from UACO, United African Community Organization, being represented today by Dr. Oshindara Nefertiti L. And also I saw Dr. Shalewa Ola in the audience, the founding president. Please stand. They presented a plaque on behalf of UACO. Kwame was a Pan-Africanist, and he understood that the problems that black people face are not just in Detroit, not just in the United States, but they're international, and the solution has to be international as well. We also have some letters that we want to acknowledge from the Honorable Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence, a condolence letter we have, and also from Wayne County Clerk Kathy Garrett. How many of y'all remember the Malcolm X Community Center on Dexter? Many powerful things came out of that small storefront on Dexter. We want to bring forward to the stage, they're already on the stage, standing behind me. I hope that means they got my back. We want to invite to the microphone Sister Shoshana Shakur, representing the Provisional Government of the Republic of New Africa, and Brother Ani Mashab Bomani, representing the Malcolm X grassroots movement.
Free the land. Free the land. That's the traditional grading of the Malcolm X grassroots movement and the New African People's Organization. The organizations that I came into being, I'm sorry, I'm a little broken up about all of this, because he called me a few weeks before, too, and told me that he didn't have long to live. But I wouldn't have joined the Malcolm X grassroots movement or the New African People's Organization if it hadn't been for Kwame Kenyatta and the Honorable Chokwe Lumumba. You know, now he's up there with the warriors, Kamau, Kwame, Sister Aisha Kaya, serious Africans. Serious Africans. These sisters and brothers did not play at all. But I'm going to concede most of my time to the sister of the Honorable Chokwe Lumumba, and we're going to do something later on in Black August for Kwame Kenyatta, so look forward to that kind of information in social media. But he brought me along, and I appreciate everything that Kwame Kenyatta doing, working for him on the city council. That was a serious brother. We did plenty of good work for the community, and I appreciate everything that he taught me and everything that I learned from him. Free the land.
Asante. To Kofi, Ayana, and the family, I want to say, Asante Sana, thank you very much for sharing Kwame Kenyatta with us. Kwame was an activist, warrior, and soldier for our people, and he never, ever wavered, hesitated, or flinched when it came to doing the people's work. From the time he was a student at Cooley and Northwestern high schools, demanding better conditions for black students, until he designed and implemented an African-centered curriculum as a member of the Detroit Board of Education. Kwame Kenyatta was for real and authentic. When he served as county commissioner, he fought to make lives better. When he, Kwame, Joanne Watson, and Brenda Jones were outnumbered and betrayed on the city council, he continued to fight for the people until he took his fight to support his comrade and friend, Mayor Chokwe Lumumba, to the people of Jackson, Mississippi. I met Kwame when we were both very young adults and active in the struggle. He was a friend at that time and comrade of my brother Chokwe Lumumba, later to become one of my comrades and best friends. We worked together in the Provisional Government of the Republic of New Africa, New African People's Organization, Malcolm X grassroots movement, and later he and my brother co-founded that Malcolm X Center. I know the newspaper was saying he co-founded Operation Get Down, which is a great, great foundation that our brother Bernard Parker and Barry Hankerson founded. But Kwame founded the Malcolm X Community Center, all right? Kwame was friends with my first husband, Giaco. I got a couple of them. I didn't say that. And I with his first wife, Maisha. He helped me with the naming of my daughter, Maisha Kienda, and officiated at my youngest child, Maya's African naming ceremony. Kwame provided initial funding for the Heritage Youth Program that I have directed for the last 15 years, and it has serviced over 4,000 youth. The program actually began a month after my son was killed. Kwame mentored my son prior to his death, and he gave me words of comfort at his funeral. By the way, 1 month prior to Kwame's death, he was still reaching out. Thank you, Greg Tatarian. and finding resources for heritage, while also looking to procure employment for other folks here in the city of Detroit. Although Kwame left the city council, he continued to work for the people, as Council President Brenda Jones said, until the day of his transition. It was Kwame who inspired the State of the Community conferences hosted several times by our organization, the Malcolm X Grassroots Movement, where we discuss issues from the school and city takeover to the pensions, to the mortgage foreclosures, theft, and everything else. Kwame traveled back from Jackson, Mississippi a couple times to speak to the people. Even during his last days on this planet, Kwame was concerned enough, I tell you, to write a statement protesting the deplorable Thomas Jefferson exhibit at our Charles Wright Museum of African American History. I love that Kwame was a no-nonsense kind of guy. He was the kind of brother that what you see is what he was. He was a strong, intelligent, brilliant brother who had compassion and love for his people. We did not always agree, but he was always right, I would later find out. He schooled me in the way my brother schooled me, and that I am forever grateful. It was Kwame who called and shared the unfortunate news of my brother's transition, and it was Kwame who shared the news with me about his soon-to-come transition. Kwame was my brother and friend who I depended on for direction and guidance in our political struggle, and whom we enjoyed sharing stories of our children and life. I am going to miss our talks, debates, and friendship, but I look forward to being with him again. And then I just want to close with this, because Kwame was very important to Atari, my brother Chokwe, and all of our family, really. Chokwe's son, our nephew, the mayor of Jackson, Mississippi, he sent in this proclamation honoring the life and legacy of Brother Kwame Kenyatta. Respectful of time, I won't read the entire proclamation. I'll just read the ending. Whereas Kenyatta was actively involved in the struggle for Black people throughout his life, beginning with his early days as a member of the Pan-African Conference. In the spirit of his hero, Marcus Garvey, Baba Kwame Kenyatta brought his political and organizing experiences to Jackson, Mississippi in 2013 to assist with our efforts towards one city, one aim, one destiny. True to his mission of civil service, Kwame served as a compliance officer for the city of Jackson, Mississippi. Whereas Baba Kenyatta loved our people and engaged service through a variety of vehicles as an entrepreneur, author, poet, and mass communicator. His life and service in Jackson was only 5 years, but his contribution and commitment to our efforts towards people's power and a dignity economy will never be forgotten. May the Creator and the ancestors embrace him as a beloved son of Africa. Whereas Kwame was a loving and devoted father to his children and a committed freedom fighter for his people. He truly embodied love for family, love for community, and the concept of lover for community as a family. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Jackson, do hereby honor and celebrate the life and legacy of my friend and comrade, Kwame Kenyatta, for the tremendous impact he has made on the community he served. Mayor Chokwe Antar Lumumba of Jackson, Mississippi. Thank you. Free the land.
Can y'all say Black Parents for Quality Education? So when I met Kwame Kenyatta in 1974, he was telling me about this sister who ran this organization, Black Parents for Quality Education. And at that time in 1974, when I was a rookie in the movement, she was already a veteran. Please put your hands together for Queen Mother Helen Moore.
Good morning, village. You know, it's been a long journey and a long ways to go, but I feel the spirit of my brother right here. And I just got to say to you, Kwame, we got your back and you had our back. And so we have to keep on keeping on in the struggle for our children's liberation and the education of our people. I went through all the historical books and programs that I saved because sometimes when we get to a certain point in our life, we forget our history. I had a good time last night after I came in from the reparation event. And I sat there and I read history and I found all of this about Kwame Kenyatta, the African American child placed in crisis. Some of you are here that were in that time that was helping with the worldwide perspective and many conferences that was held. This is 1994. Kofi, I saved this for you. Then we had guiding principles for an African-centered education when he was pushing this on the Board of Education. And after we became Keep the Vote, No Takeover Coalition, we had an annual pre-Kwanzaa celebration fundraiser because we had a court case that went all the way to the Supreme Court. And this celebration was honoring our ancestors. And Kwame Kenyatta was commissioner of the County of Wayne and presented awards to Irma Henderson and our sister Rosa Parks. Now, I brought all this information and the history that I know, but most of it has been said. But what you don't know is the warrior that Kwame Kenyatta was and the crazy person who he saved her life. That person was me. You know, when I think about our children and I think about how they've been treated, educationally, etc., then I can't hold it in me. The passion comes out. I had 4 children that were educated in Detroit public schools, and all the children are my children. So let me give you something that you don't see written because it is part of Kwame's history. He was no punk. He was not. But he saved my life because I was extreme, and all of you know it that's worked with me. And you know about Warrendale when Malcolm X Academy was there. You know about the racist white people that tried to run our children out of their school over there, and they were shooting at the school, and our children were in jeopardy. I get a call from Kwame. He says, Sister Helen, they shooting at our children. What we gonna do? I said, we gonna organize. We going over there. We gonna get everybody we know together, and we going to the school, and we gonna march around and protest and do what we need to do to tell them we ain't scared. So we organized. Hundreds of people came, and our little babies, they were afraid, but they were out there with us. But here goes the worst part that I can tell you. I should have been arrested a long time ago, but don't tell nobody that. Okay, and it's because of you, some of you in this room that have saved my life. I hear you, Joanne, over there. I did get carried out of the meeting about 4 months ago. I thought it was over with, but it's still going on. And because of Joanne and some of you, when y'all got up and stopped the meeting and couldn't go on and said, take your hands off of her. Well, it worked because when they took me out the side door, trying to keep me away from you all, they brought me back in. They got so scared, they brought me back in. I looked at the president and said, you just had me arrested. And she said, you just sit there and wait. They stopped the meeting. Next meeting, Joanne was lined up, a whole line of folks talking about, you better not ever touch her. You know, they ain't touched me since that day. And I take advantage of it. But let me go back to Warrendale. So we all lined up early in the morning, and I got my real clothes, warrior clothes on, and Kwame and the African folks was all around me. There was an African Liberation Army. If y'all didn't know it, it was. So they're protecting us. And I'm standing out there as usual, the so-and-sos, white racists, you know, some words y'all don't want to hear right now. I'm just talking loud and everybody's chanting and everything. All of a sudden, police was everywhere. Somebody came up behind me and said, Sister Helen, you need to be cool right now. I said, no, I ain't gonna be cool. It's these so-and-so and so-and-so messing with our children, shooting at them and everything. I'm ready for them. I got something for them. Kwame said, I'm telling you, you better be cool. Look on top of that building. I said, what building? He said, a school building. I was so busy marching and running my mouth. He said, they heard every word you said. And you've been threatening these folks the whole time. I said, uh-oh. Looked up there, next thing I know, the police officers were all around me. One black woman officer got up in my face telling me what I got to do and all of this, and I lost it. I said, ain't you one of us? I said, you see all these white officers around me, but they sent you up here to deal with me. Well, you got the wrong person. I'm not to be dealt with when it comes to shooting and killing our children. So Kwame said, oh, Lord, have mercy. So he called all the men, Pan-African Congress and everything, and they surrounded me. The next thing I know, the police officers was backing up. I said, what you need to do is protect our children. You don't need to be dealing with me because I'm not the one that's violent. I'm not the one carrying me out of school board meetings, trying to break my fingers and everything. I'm standing up for our children, and I'm going to do that because I don't take second-class citizenship. I never will, and I never have. Oh, Lord, Kwame said, what we going to do with you? I said, you don't have to do anything with me. You have to do something with these folks that are shooting at our children. And so it ended up where they had to move Malcolm X Academy out of Warrendale into the area that they're in right now. So the stories have not been told, all the stories about Kwame. He was a warrior. He didn't take no mess, but when he got tired of us, he would come to me and say, I'm getting tired of these Negroes. He said, sometime I'm by myself. I said, you ain't the only one. And he said, they know what's right, but they're afraid to stand with me. And they still afraid to stand with me. So my message from my brother and his spirit is still here. I feel it. You had our back. We're going to keep marching forward. And somehow we going to make our people understand that they pay the taxes for the Detroit public schools. It is our schools and it is our children. That's power. And from now on, we don't take no second-class citizenship when it comes to our children, and we stand up for them because the spirit of Kwame Kenyatta is with us, and we ain't no punks.
Calling all revolutionaries, black revolutionaries. How many of y'all remember the hip-hop group in the early 1990s, Chaos and Maestro? So we have a brother who, although he started kind of in that realm, has matured into an activist and a spiritual leader and a pillar in our community. Please put your hands together for Brother Tafuri Brent.
God is good all the time. For this is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. I want to say thank you to the family for humbling me with the privilege to share just a couple of words. And I promise you I will be submissive to your direction and not be long, but to be brief. out of respect for the time. To my elders, I love you all. It's an honor and a privilege to be in your presence, and I thank you for the lessons that you have taught me. And is it okay if I just share a few words? Thank you so much. I want to acknowledge Dr. Earl Henderson, who came all the way from Colorado to bless us. I mentioned Dr. Henderson because Dr. Henderson and myself and Brother Kwame did a lot of things together, especially in the 90s. And it was Dr. Henderson who really taught me Kwame Kenyatta and Chokwe Lumumba before I even met them. But I am so honored and privileged, and I just want to say thank you. That's really all I want to say. I'm grateful for Baba Kwame Kenyatta. I'm grateful for what he taught me. I'm grateful for what he showed me. You see, I stand because he stood. I love black people because he loved black people. I serve black people courageously and fearlessly because he served black people courageously and fearlessly. I walk these streets. I serve in these streets. I defend these streets. I protect these streets because he did that. I protect African women. I stand up for our children because he did that. He was a black man. He was the epitome of what black manhood looks like. He wasn't no soul. He wasn't no sucker. He wasn't no sellout. He wasn't no punk, and he wasn't no coward. That is what I looked up to. Every time I saw him, I was inspired by what he represented. But more than that, he was a compassionate, loving man. He wasn't just strong and tough, but he was compassionate and loving. And he was a teacher. I remember the Malcolm X Center on Dexter. I used to go there. See, I remember the Malcolm X Center in Exile at Lewis College of Business. I used to go there. Did you know that Brother Kwame Kenyatta actually had the first hip-hop conference in the city of Detroit? I know because I was on the panel. See, I remember at Lewis College of Business, Mama Joanne, when the NAACP and the Malcolm X grassroots movement used to meet on the same day. Am I lying, Mama Joanne? See, I remember those lessons. So the young people say, what's up with this Kwame Kenyatta? Because they don't really know and understand him. I say, well, when you see Kirby Wade Frazier, you see Kwame Kenyatta. When you see Dr. Jelani Jabbar, you see Kwame Kenyatta. When you see Mama Ajua and Nkinje, you see Kwame Kenyatta. When you see Brother Omari Sankofa, you see Kwame Kenyatta. When you see Dr. Henderson, you see Kwame Kenyatta. When you see Brother Tafuri in the streets, you see Kwame Kenyatta. I'm grateful. I'm grateful. I say thank you, Baba Kwame, for African Liberation Day. I say thank you for African-centered education, Baba Kwame Kenyatta. I say thank you for showing us how to shut down the Arab business owners who disrespected our women and our children. I say thank you. I say thank you for showing us how to march on Coney Island when they was murdering black men every week in the 1990s. I say thank you, Baba. I say thank you for the night marches. You remember the night marches he used to have? I say thank you. I say thank you for showing us how to defend and protect our elders in the neighborhood. I say thank you. See, he showed us those things. He showed us those things. I say thank you. That's what it means to free the land. When we started Detroit 300 initially, I checked in. See, I come up under these elders. Well, we checked in. We got permission. We got wisdom. I checked in with Baba Earl. I checked in and I called Baba Kwame Kenyatta. I said, this is what we're talking about doing. I don't know what it's going to look like, but this is what we talk. We got to get in the streets. Not only did he approve it and support it, but he would send Baba Ed Moore and Brother Stephen out on every single campaign. They were in the streets with us because he couldn't make it. But he sent his soldiers. So I'm grateful. So all I got to say this afternoon is that I'm thankful and I'm prayerful for you. And I stand in the gap for you, Brother Kofi. We're here for you, brother. And I love your daddy. I respect your daddy. I honor your daddy. I want to be like your daddy. And I walk in your daddy's spirit and in his example. We say free the land. We say free the land. We say I love black people. I love black people. We say free the land. God bless you.
Powerful, powerful brother. We're going to ask Sister Peace to come forward, and she's going to share some poetry with us.
if you all feel the spirit of our fierce ancestor, y'all better make some noise in here. I had the wonderful opportunity of working with Councilman Kwame Kenyatta on his 40 School Pride Tour, Personal Responsibility in Determining Excellence. And what our brother did was he drew from his past, his upbringing, and the things that he learned from his elders in an attempt to go into the schools and instill a certain sense of pride back into our youth. And it was amazing to see. It was beautiful to see how it's just, forgive me, but it's just, it's habit for me to call him Councilman, because that's what I knew him as. But Councilman would go into the school, and it was brilliant. It was genuine. It was authentic. And the way he connected and bridged the gap with the youth was amazing. It was one particular day, myself along with my comrade, Mike Wright, we accompanied Brother Councilman at one particular school. And this particular day, he walked in, his spirit was a little different. His hat was a little tilted. His walk was a little different. His swag was a little different this particular day. Me and Mike Wright looking at each other like, what is about to go on? So after he did the educational spiel, myself and Mike Wright would always come behind the councilman and do what he termed the edutainment. But this particular day, he said, I got this. And me and Mike looked at each other and said, he got what? See, we didn't know, we wasn't ready. We did not know that Councilman was an amazing artist and writer, and he had a 16 in his spirit that just needed releasing that day. And if you all do not know what a 16 is, what a hot 16 is, it's a rap verse. And he did that in front of the assembly, and the children went crazy. And me and Mike Wright looked at each other like, oh my God, he's showing us up. The councilman is showing us up. We got to step our game up. But it was amazing to watch. It was amazing to see how he bonded with the youth and just spoke into their situation, pulling and drawing from his own upbringing. And it, as an artist, one artist to another artist, and he was so much more. But it is an honor to be able to share some words from Councilman Kwame Kenyatta. If you all are not familiar with the culture, I'm gonna just need you all to just give me some snaps. Give me some snaps. This is all year round Kwanzaa woman. An all year round Kwanzaa woman is what I want. I'm talking about a Umoja woman, striving to maintain unity in the family, community, nation, and race while being in total harmony with herself. A Kuja Chakalia woman, a woman who is determined to define herself, name herself, create for herself, and speak for herself. A woman who is determined to see her people free by any and all revolutionary means necessary. I'm talking about a serious Ujima woman, who will collectively take a stand with her man and assume responsibility of building and maintaining a strong new African community, capable of solving the problems of our people, an all year round Kwanzaa woman. In the spirit of Ujamaa, working together to build a strong economic base for the race. Now, brothers, don't you want an all year round Nia woman? A woman of purpose. If you're feeling this in your spirit, just give me some snaps. A woman of purpose from beginning to end, who expelled the myth of the original sin, a show-nuff Kumba woman. In motion, son, daughter of the original mother, creator of the first fruit. A 24/7, 365 days a year Imani woman. providing faith and foundation for the righteousness and the victory of our nation, and all year round. Kwanzaa woman is what I want for me. A woman of destiny, struggling to be African free. Y'all make some noise for our fierce ancestor, Kwame Kenyatta.
We're moving the program quickly because we want to be respectful of the time that we have this space reserved. One of the dancers lost a phone. It's a black phone in a rose case. If you have found that, please bring that to the stage so we can return it to the owner. Brother Teferi mentioned some of these young lions who kind of studied up under Brother Kwame Kenyatta and were affiliated with the Malcolm X Community Center on Dexter. Please welcome to the microphone Dr. Jelani Jabari and Brother Omari Sankofa.
To the elders, do I have your permission to speak? To the family, thank you so much for allowing us just a few moments to share a few words about Baba Kwame. I believe it was Frederick Douglass who said, "Those who profess to favor freedom, yet deprecate agitation, are those who want crops without plowing the ground." Right about the year 1990, I, along with Omar, along with many other young people, were on those mean streets of Dexter Boulevard as some of those seeds that were blowing. Kwame opened his heart. He brought us into the center, and he said, "Jelani, it's sowing time." Kwame unquestionably and unapologetically showed me what it is to have a love and commitment for our people. So Baba Kwame said, after about a year, Brother Jelani, my birth name, if you're going to be with us, you need to have an African name. So he performed, like with many others, the naming ceremony. I was at Wayne State at the time and was really kind of trying to figure out what I was going to do for my career. Baba Kwame said, "Have you thought about teaching?" So he connected me with Dr. Clifford Watson, put me over to Malcolm X Community Center, and we just finished 27 years in education. Baba Kwame took me and many others under his wing and showed us not to deprecate, but appreciate agitation. So, in my brief words this morning, the one question I have for you all is, have you ever met anyone who sold their soul for a few pieces of silver? Well, back in the 90s when he initially ran for the Board of Education, they whispered, "That brother's selling out." Baba Kwame pushed for the integration of African-centered education in the Detroit School District. Baba Kwame pushed for the opening of African-centered schools in the Detroit school system. Baba Kwame ran and stood, because I was right there with him, on the principle of being unbought and unbossed. Baba Kwame ran for Wayne County Commission. He stood up and stood on principle. Baba Kwame ran for city council, and he operated under the principle, if it's not about my people and their benefit, don't bring it across my desk. To Ayana, to Kofi, as a formerly young man who never met his father, thank you for making space under the wing of a giant who I can't do enough to say how much we love you. So, in a brief time honoring the program, I bring up good brother Omari Sankofa.
And I thank the elders for allowing us to to speak, and the family for this opportunity to voice my love for your beloved. And I was a broken young man when I met Kwame Kenyatta. I was at Mercy College of Detroit. A nun had given me the autobiography of Malcolm X to read for a book report. So I didn't know what to express. I didn't know what to say. I made this homemade Malcolm X badge, and I wore it around the campus. Everybody just left me alone. So I come into the student center one day, and there's Kwame Kenyatta selling books. Founder of the Malcolm X Community Center, looking at this young, broken, angry man. Come here, brother. So we didn't foresee this day then, but somebody saw it. The first time I did poetry in an audience that really appreciated it was with Malik Yakini over at Pandas over on 6 Mile, across from Mary Grove. Who sent me there? Kwame Kenyatta. I'm a member at Hartford Memorial Baptist Church. I went to Hartford for the first time because Kwame Kenyatta sent me. There was a vote for expatriates from Eritrea, and he couldn't make it. Sent me. Television, sent me. We did the radio program, the dynamic duo of Black consciousness, right? Kwame Kenyatta, always giving young people an opportunity and a voice. And so as a poet, I was going to read Burning Fire, which is one of Kwame's poems. Kofi and I had a conversation earlier. You all can read this. So for you today, I've put together some of the quotes that I've heard Kwame give in his speeches over the years, and these are reflections on a burning fire. And this is a call and response. So after I stop, I need you all to say, I'm a burning fire. You got that? So when I stop, you're going to do what? Say. All right, Black folks. Reflections on a burning fire. Scorching the earth and taking no prisoners. Setting free those who need to be. Setting to flames those who ought to be. Watch out now. You must have an undying love for the people. Each generation, out of relative obscurity, must discover its mission, fulfill it, or betray it. Land is the basis of independence. I am a serious African. There's no solution in the pollution. Say it loud. I'm black and I'm proud. Free the land. If you stop struggling, you stop living. The revolution will not be televised. Africa for the Africans at home and abroad. Because we live in the abnormal defines the normal. Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did, and it never will. If there is no struggle, there is no progress. We shall overcome. The battle of the bullet. Look for me in the whirlwind or the storm. Look for me all around you. And this is from Kwame Kenyatta. You are a burning fire that will, and you will keep on burning until all the people are free. Kwame Kenyatta. Kwame Kenyatta. Kwame Kenyatta.
Thank you, Brother Omari and Dr. Jelani. My apologies because I skipped something on the program. We want to bring up Dr. Jeffrey Robinson for a tribute from the Malcolm X Academy.
Jumbo. See, I know my people's in the house. I am not Dr. Jeffrey Robinson. I am Baba Victor Gibson. I would just like to say, and I'll open it up for my elders to allow me to speak, because you know I'm kind of rash. I'll just jump out there. For the family, always good seeing you. Kwame Kenyatta and I go way back, maybe 10, 15 minutes. I've had many careers in my life. I worked in mental health, I worked in social work, but it wasn't until I became a teacher, an educator. See, I'm a high school dropout. I didn't like that Eurocentric thinking, and I didn't know how bad I was getting it until I read Amos Wilson's book, The Falsification of African Consciousness. And you really ought to read that. If you have not read, it's only a thin book now, but you ought to really get that book. But in it, he explains how it is that we have not really internalized our struggle and how it is we have not really embraced what it is that it takes to move forward. But I would like to say this as I move from the mic. I appreciate what Kwame Kenyatta allowed me to do. He allowed me to find my calling. I'm a damn good teacher. I'm one of the, it's a sad dog that can't wag his own tail. But I knew how to nurture my children because I had the tools. See, Kwame Kenyatta made me a farmer, but what's a farmer if you don't have the tools? And so the seeds that I allowed, Kofi was one of my seeds. Come on here, boys, stand up and raise your hand because you know I'll get you, I'll snatch you up. See, when the people entrust you with their children, there's no sacred greater trust than that. I had to make sure that my children were going to be prepared for the future that I knew America was going to have in store for them. So I stand on the shoulders of Dr. Clifford Dean Watson. You heard his name. You know, he snatched me up. He dusted me off. He gave me my overalls. And he put me on the plantation of Malcolm X Academy. I was there from the beginning until the end. Until somehow or another, Detroit let the emergency managers come in and destroy what we were building. See, it wasn't just that we were building a school. We were educating a future of conscious African children. See, some of us picked it up. I didn't get my understanding until I was almost 30. But the sooner you get our children ingrained in their natural consciousness, from kindergarten to whatever, to the time to get off, check off this planet, we understand that if we're going to make America great ever, if we're going to make it great ever, we're going to have to demand in reparation, in education, we're going to have to demand that they teach our children. They let us teach our children. See, we fought emergency managers for a whole lot, and some of you all didn't see out here helping us. But now you're going to understand. If they let us take our children back to where they were, our children are going to hate you for it. As the old African proverb says, if the children don't get love from the village, they'll burn it down. I say.
Good afternoon. I am Dr. Jeffrey Robinson. In the essence of time, I'll say ditto to everything that Bobby Gibson just said, but I am the current principal of now the Paul Robeson Malcolm X Academy. There have been but 3 principals of Malcolm X, and one is among our ancestors, Dr. Clifford Dean Watson. The second is in the audience today in person of Miss Frida Dawson. And I stand as the current principals. It was Kwame Kenyatta that inspired Mrs. Dawson and I to go and fight the emergency manager when Robert Bob wanted to close both Robeson and Malcolm X. He said you can't let them do that because of what it means. And so as Robeson Malcolm X is now still open, 2 of the 3 remaining African-centered schools, it is in the spirit that we continue to liberate young black minds in Detroit Public Schools today. And so we wanted to, on behalf of the students of the Paul Robeson Malcolm X Academy, we wanted to present this resolution to the family of Kwame Kenyatta, and please be advised that a duplicate copy will forever hang in the hallways of Paul Robeson Malcolm X so that our children will be aware of the struggles that people made for them to be able to educate and be exposed to who they are and what their futures hold. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Gibson and Dr. Robinson. We have a musical tribute from an incredible band right here from the city of Detroit. Put your hands together, please, for In the Tradition.
Testing.
Testing.
Hello, family. How's everybody feeling? You know, it's always good when you get a bunch of us together and get that spirit to flowing, you know, that kind of that Holy Spirit, you know what I mean? There's been a lot of eloquent words that have been said today, and I'm not going to add too much more to that, but I will say this. Many moons ago, Brother Kwame lived about 8 blocks from my mother's house, and I had the opportunity to take him home on several occasions. And one thing I loved about him, I could just listen to him when we got to talking about the liberation of our people, because he was so serious about that, and I was just taken with surprise, and I could just listen to him go on and on and on about this struggle. So what we're going to do in our own way, we of In the Tradition, we're going to summon up the ancestors ourselves. And we're going to try to bring a Holy Spirit into this house, and we want you to pay attention as we do it the only way we know how, musically, is In the Tradition.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. God bless you, family. Thank you very much.
In the tradition, and they have CDs out. We're going to encourage you to support this band. In fact, to support all the artists who support our community. So we are running short on time. We're going to ask the people who are coming forward to do eulogies to keep it as short as possible. And I'm really going to forego mine. There's so many things I could tell you about Kwame Kenyatta. And maybe I can get with some of y'all afterwards and we can share some of those stories. I'll just say he was my brother and comrade, and I continue to be inspired by his example. We want to ask Sister Morinike to come forward. She's going to read a letter on behalf of her mother, Sister Nubia Wardford Polk.
Jumbo. My brother Kwame, what a huge loss for us, but I am selfishly stating that I feel his loss as well. He was my brother in a very, very true sense of the word. He was my teacher, a friend, and a comrade. And most of all, he was my big brother almighty. I met Kwame as a teenager, soon after I joined the NAPO, the New African People's Organization, with he and my sister's prompting. At the time, I happened to be the only sister in the organization. As part of our NAPO training, we made trips to the gun range along with our NAPO comrades and a few other community brothers, where I outshot all of the brothers. Kwame could never believe how good a shot I was without any prior practice. He would say, "Brothers, beware," with a smile and eyebrows raised. I would come to the Malcolm X Center with my infant daughter in tow. He quickly embraced her and the rest of my family as his family. My mother respected him immensely. He was a steadfast warrior, always on the case for the race, a no-nonsense kind of political leader. His loyalty as a brother and friend were of the highest order to my entire immediate family. He was definitely there for me when he could be present, in lending a helping hand, words of encouragement, and also words of reprimand. He made sure I felt it when I was in error. But he was one of the people that I could speak to about any type of major decision. His response was always, always thoughtful. Simply said, he was a brother I could count on. When I was laid off from an 11-year position in an institution in which city funds were used, this one, that he oversaw, he quickly offered to call the CEO to demand my job back. To this day, I do not know how he got the news so quickly. He had people. He moved in accordance to what he thought was right in all cases. Kwame's heart was wholly dedicated to the growth and development of new Africans, the individual, the family, the community, the Black nation, and race. He exemplified, "My word is my bond is my life. Before I break my word, I will give my life." He loved me and I loved him. Though we never spoke those words, his actions were plainly understood. Often in life, you never have to say certain words to know a person's heart. I am sure that my brother Kwame is on the other side, helping us toward victory and liberation and spirituality while we continue to regain our African identity. Though I miss him on this side, his side-eye sense of humor, along with his acute wisdom and love for his people, is forever etched in my memory. There aren't many in my life like him. I suppose there won't be many more. But in his dedication to our people, I hope that his example is magnified, duplicated, and multiplied. I appreciated, respected, and loved him so very much. I hope he knew how much. I promise to keep the work, Kwame. I promise to continue the work, Kwame. Until we meet again, everlasting love, admiration, and respect to you, your little sister, Nubia Morinike.
I want to quickly bring forward his friend Greg Tatarian.
Good morning. When I was asked to share a few remarks today about my friendship with Kwame, I was honored and humbled. My condolences to his family, Kofi. Much will be said, many stories told about Kwame's legacy in launching African-centered education in the city of Detroit. His years in the community, his fighting spirit, and his positions on the Detroit Board of Education, Wayne County Commission, and Detroit City Council. The following are some personal observations from a man I was introduced to, came to know, and worked with over the course of 26 years. He was a leader. He made sure the community had a seat at the table. He stood out among men. He made up his own mind, figured out what he thought needed to be done, and went out and did it. He put his life representing other people. He spent his life representing other people. Every sentence he began, every conversation he began, it was about his constituents. He strived to bring opportunities, resources, connections to his community. Never once did I recall him ever asking for anything that wouldn't first benefit the community, the children, and the working people. Kwame wanted to learn whatever would help create jobs, improve education for the citizens of Detroit. He was inquisitive, open-minded. He explored new things, opportunities that could create jobs. He listened, soaked in information. He saw things firsthand. His voice was consistent. Many leaders come and go. Conditions change. Sometimes the path to where we know we need to go gets blurred. Whatever the discussion or specifics, whatever the project or opportunity, Kwame kept his sight on the end result. Kwame was always calm and courageous in furthering the goals, his goals, of representing the community. You felt his presence in a room, at a table, in a discussion. He was patient, tireless in his positions on issues. To us, Kwame Kenyatta was a hero, a kindred spirit and a friend. I will miss him greatly. Thank you.
You've already heard from his cousin, Bonetta Tias, but we're going to bring her back to the mic.
Okay, because of time, the Cliff Note version. I was trying to figure out what I would say or what I would talk about. First of all, thanks to Kofi and Bernice for giving me this opportunity. I love you guys. And one thing kept bubbling up to the top, and it was the word love. And when we got in yesterday morning, Bernice and I read the inscription on the plaque. It said, a brother who loved the people. He was a brother who loved his family. He loved it. You don't get to choose your family. They are your family. And he loved us unconditionally because your family knows you. They don't know of you. They know you, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And they love you anyway, and that's what he did. He was so in tune to us, his family. He knew when something was going on. When he had to be rough with us, he was rough with us. When he had to be kind and gentle with us, he was kind and gentle. He and I had this, as other family members can say, this respect for one another. We were talking about something when he was in Jackson, Mississippi, and I would say this and he would say that, and it was just a back and forth, and it was obvious no one was going to win. But because of the love and respect, we just decided to, as I say, just terminate the conversation. And later on that afternoon, texts between he and I started going back and forth, back and forth. That's love. That's love. We didn't allow those type things to keep us separated because life is too short for that. And also being so in tune with us, something had happened with me and my younger brother, and he was talking to me, and I found out later he immediately hung up, called Bernice, and said, okay, what's wrong with her? She's like, oh, nothing's wrong. You know, he said, no, I know. What is wrong with her? Tell me, I want to know. So when she told him, he said, well, the next time I come up there, I'm going to have a talk with him. And when she told me that, I said, oh, no, he can't do that. And in the words of my favorite all-time comedian, Bernie Mac, I knew that that conversation was going to turn into some furniture being moved, and I said, and it wasn't for redecoration. I said, tell him, no, he can't do that. Let's just leave it alone. I'm going to be all right. And the same way, and Bernice doesn't know this, when he would talk to her, if something was going on, then he would call me and say, what's going on? I was like, well, everything is okay. No, what's going on? I want to know. I need to know. Then I just spill my guts. And I said, well, I told him he wanted to know. He knew something was going on. But that's how he was in tune with us. And the same way we were in tune with him. I was talking to Bernice this morning, and I say, well, how did you know when he called you and everything was everything? Because she say, when I'd answer the phone, he'd say, hello. But if things were not so good, it would be, hey, baby, and she knew, okay, I got to listen. Now, with me, when he would call or we would talk, it would be, hey, cuz, and we'd go on. But if it was something important, something going on that he needed to talk to me about, it would be, hey, Bonetta. Hey, Bonetta. And I knew right then, I've got to stop and I've got to listen. And I'm in the medical fields and some in medical fields, so sometimes it was related to what was going on. So at that point, I got to give him fax numbers. I've got to get this report. I've got to read it. I've got to interpret it. And if I don't know, then I've got to take it to some of my friends who can, do that. So I just want to say he loved us. He loves us, not in the past tense, in the present. He loves us, his family. He respected us, and we respected him. And one other thing that I just want to leave you with is what we demonstrated, and that's forgiveness. Forgiveness, not being too big to say, I'm sorry. And just let it go and don't hold on to it. And once you forgive, then forgive and let it be done, because that's what he did. He had to be about living and doing things to help his family, to love his family, and to respect his family. So in doing that, those three things, love, respect, and forgiveness, you honor him. Thank you so much.
I'm going to ask you to stand as we welcome his children to the microphone. Please welcome Ayana and Kofi.
Greetings, family. Before I share some remarks about my father, I want to recognize two people in particular. I don't know if any of you all have been caretakers before or know how difficult it is to be a caretaker. But since my father moved to Alabama, there was one person in particular that was there for him every single day, cooking his meals, bringing his meals to him, cleaning his sheets, running errands for him. She was there for him when he made his transition. She sat with him as a sister and as a friend. So I want my Aunt Bernice to please stand up, and I want the Detroit community to please recognize her. The second person that I would like to recognize isn't here, and that's my little cousin DJ, all but 16 years old. Many of you all know my father and how stubborn he can be at times. And we tried to get people to come stay with him, but he was an independent soldier and he didn't want anybody. He said it's not time for that yet. Finally, we got to him, and I tried to get him to come to Detroit. He didn't want to do that either. But finally, he was open to having someone stay with him, and my little cousin DJ stepped up to the plate. And when I couldn't reach my father, I would send a text or give my cousin a call. And one time I forgot he was in school. He answered the phone and he said, "What's going on, Coffee?" Because, you know, my family calls me Coffee in Alabama. And I said, "I'm just checking on my pops." He said, "He's good. If anything changes, I'll let you know." So my family was there for me. My family was there for my father, and I always appreciate them for that and love them for that. Thank you. The impact that my father had on this community in the overall struggle for Black liberation can't possibly be captured in just one obituary or even in the stories and remarks that you all heard here today. He would often say that he was just a simple and plain brother that loved his people, but I contend that there is nothing simple or plain about my father. He was a serious brother dedicated to the liberation of Black people, and throughout my entire life, people have told me stories about how my father impacted them and how much he meant to them and to this city. And since my father's passing, every single day, either a family member or a close friend of his, or sometimes complete strangers that may recognize me on the street, they'll stop me and tell me about how much my father has meant to them. A few days ago, Mama Atari was telling me a story about my father. She said, I was just a baby, and we were at Malcolm X Community Center, and they got a call from a disabled mother that said that her son had a gun pointed to his head and he was threatening to commit suicide. And so my father gave me as just a baby to Mama Atari. He went to that sister's home, and he talked to her, and he talked to that young man, and she said, "All I know is that young man didn't kill himself that day because of your father." And that's the type of man he was. He didn't do the things that he did for recognition. In today's term, we call it clout chasing. He wasn't a clout chaser. He did those things because he believed they were the right thing to do. And that's the legacy that he lives with us today. And I know many of us are mourning, but today is a celebratory occasion. As I was telling someone that was having a hard time with my father's transition, I'm the king of terrible analogies. And so, you know, I told her that, you know, each day I get in my truck and my vehicle takes me from point A to point B. You know, sometimes it needs an oil change, sometimes it breaks down, and one day it's eventually gonna give out on me. And I said, that's the way I view these earthly bodies. They are just modes of transportation while we are here on this earth. None of you would confuse me from my truck, but we are spiritual beings occupying these earthly bodies. And so the way I look at it, my father is more alive now than he has ever been. I was with my father early April. We were going to the doctor for one of his routine weekly checkups to run his numbers. And we went to the doctor, and the doctor told us that she believes he only had 2 months to live. And you know, that's not something that we were prepared for, but we dealt with it. And I asked my father, well, have you had time to put some things on paper or an audio recording so that the people can hear some of your final thoughts? And he said, I haven't been doing that, but I guess I better get on it. And so a few weeks later, he sent me an email. The email subject was some final thoughts. And I didn't open it until he passed away, and then I listened to it, and it's about 30 minutes long, and obviously we won't play the whole thing here today, but I was able to splice it down into about 5 minutes or so. And so we're going to leave you all with some final thoughts from my father, Kwame Kenyatta. We appreciate all of you all for coming out to honor the life and legacy of my father. We appreciate the city for your continuous support. And don't want you all to think I didn't give my sister opportunity to speak. You know, she's having a hard time, but she absolutely loves our father, and she's standing here with me today, as she has been throughout this process. Thank you.
Well, since my doctor have given me about 2 months to live, I guess I need to make some haste and put down some of my thoughts that I should have been doing all the time. These 63 years have been full. I don't believe wasted. When I left here at 12 years old, because the family moved to Detroit, I was just a child. I think I have been given my foundation teachings from here, but I got even more once I got into D. So I got in Detroit. I discovered my identity as a person, as a man, as a cultural being. And I began on that journey of transforming from Norman Tyers to Kwame Kenyatta. Hopefully I have left a legacy of service that others can draw upon, strength and commitment that others can exemplify. But ultimately, like all that eventually will fall into the minds and hearts of those who know you, who may call your name during libations or in a speech or two. I am not sure how I will be remembered, nor is it that important to me at this point, other than on a positive and progressive level, because you don't want your children or grandchildren or friends to feel ashamed when they hear your name. You want them to be able to hold their head up high and say, yeah, I knew that brother. I knew that sister. They did good work. We will always remember them in our rituals. So many friends that I've met over the years, or so many people who have become friends through association, either in my involvement politically or personally, mostly politically. I am thankful for them and the time that I was allowed to share a part of their lives. So many to name that I would leave somebody out. But I am so thankful that we crossed paths and shared a word or two and maybe broke bread together, maybe blazed a trail of struggle together. I am indeed thankful for that. I've indicated to my family that I want to be cremated. No big funeral, no funeral at all, actually. Can be a memorial. Can't be in a church or a temple or a mosque or anything of that nature. I didn't live there, and I don't want to die there in memory. I don't want to be buried in America. I had nothing to do with coming here and being here. But it is my will that my ashes be taken as far away as possible. It would have been better in Africa, but if nobody takes me there, then the Atlantic Ocean would be just fine. Or any great body of water away from America would be just fine. So at this point, I sign off and try to live life a little longer, run on and see what the end is going to be.
Imithandazo yethu Nkosi sikelela thina lusapho lwayo Nkosi sikeleli Afrika maluphakanyisa uphondo lwayo Yizwa imithandazo yethu Nkosi sikelela thina lusapho lwayo Murena buluka sichaba sa Yesu Ufedi sedin twali masweyeho Sibuluke 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 morena Sibuluke Sichabasa Yesu Sichabasa South Africa Woza moya Woza Iti woza moya Woza moya Oyi Nwele Nkosi Sigelela Thina Lusapho lwayo
Free the land. On behalf of the family, we want to thank you for coming out. The drummers are going to lead us out in a procession. We'd like the family to lead first and then the rest to follow. Thank you very much.